We're live. Sure.
That's real good.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Please join me in saluting the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
and to the republic
for which it stands,
One
one
nation.
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building and by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2020 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2019 and by filing said notice in the office of the township clerk.
Adams.
Here.
Dapis.
Here.
Mr. DeLuca.
Here.
Mr. Lembrick.
Here.
Mayor McGee.
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas desire the governing body to comply with the provisions of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except to set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observation, the actions, and discussion of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Adams.
Yes.
Mr. Dapis.
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca.
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick.
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes, and thank you, Ms. Fritzen. And good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 31st Township Committee meeting. It's an emergency meeting, but because we want to move forward with governing, and also it should be noted that it's our second virtual meeting so far ever, and this month as well. I will briefly go through our agenda for this evening, and then we will move forward. First, we have a public comment on agenda items only. Then we will move into one of 6 ordinances on final passage. Our first ordinance is related to the creation of the Department of Engineering and Public Works. Our second ordinance, also on final passage, is an amendment to some of our codes relating to towing and storage services. Our third ordinance, also on final passage, is related to codes and fees related to rental properties. Our fourth ordinance is related to a code as well in vehicles and traffic, and we'll talk about that. It's relating to Jacoby Street by Brown. And then our fifth ordinance is related to our sustainability efforts, and it's moving forward with the regulation regarding styrofoam. Our sixth and final ordinance on the agenda this evening is also related to sustainability, and it's enhancements and revisions to our current single-use, or better yet known as plastic bag ordinance. After that, we will have one administrative report from our Township Administrator, Mr. Veros, where we will be discussing our 2020 budget timeline. We have one resolution on the agenda, which is regarding awarding a contract for our Wi-Fi program, which we've been talking about for some period of time. And then after that, we will have our second public comment on any subject matter. We do have a couple of questions which we will address. And then after that, we will adjourn. So at this point, we will move forward with our agenda. And as I scroll back down through it, because it's lengthy here in scope, we were now on agenda item number 5. Do we have any public comments, Mr. Waltz, regarding agenda items?
As of now, Mr. Mayor, you have no public comments.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. We will now move on to agenda item number 6. We have an ordinance on final passage. Ms. Fritzen?
Yes, Mayor, it's ordinance number 2986-20, an ordinance to create the Department of Engineering and Public Works. This ordinance will combine the Department of Engineering and the Department of Public Works within the Township of Maplewood and consolidate the supervision of the newly created department.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Would anyone at this point on our virtual want to speak on this ordinance? Mr. Waltz, are we seeing anyone?
You have no one, sir.
Thank you. Hearing or seeing no one, we will now close the public hearing. May I receive a motion? Ms. Adams.
I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole. The clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
I get a second.
Mr. DeLuca.
Second. I couldn't get my button there.
All good. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We're on agenda item number 7, also ordinance on final passage.
Yes, Mayor, that's ordinance number 2987-20. It's an ordinance to amend Chapter 251 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood, titled Towing and Storage Services. This ordinance will revise fees that may be charged for towing services within the Township of Maplewood.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance to the law. Mr. Waltz, do you hear anyone who wants to speak on this ordinance?
No, sir.
Thank you. Hearing and seeing no one, we will now close the public hearing. May I receive a motion on this ordinance? Mr. Lembrick.
Mr. Mayor, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
May I get a second, please?
A second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
No.
Okay. Seeing none, please call the roll, Ms. Fritzen.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We are now on agenda item number 8, also ordinance on final passage.
Yes, Mayor, ordinance number 2988-20. It's an ordinance to amend Chapter 209 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Rental Properties. This ordinance will increase the annual registration fee to $75 and missed appointments fee to $25.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance to law. Mr. Waltz, do we see anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance?
No, sir.
Thank you. Seeing or hearing no one, we will now close the public hearing. May I receive a motion? Mr. Daffis.
Yes, Mayor, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Perfect. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will end our discussion. And can we please call the roll, Ms. Fritzen?
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
We're now up to our agenda item number 9, also another ordinance on final passage.
Yes, Mayor, also on final passage, an ordinance to amend Chapter 257 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Vehicles and Traffic. This ordinance will impose parking restrictions on portions of Jacoby Street.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Mr. Waltz, do we have anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance?
No, sir.
Thank you. Hearing no one, we will now close the public hearing. May I have a motion? Ms. Adams.
Yes, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrecht,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Agenda item number 10, also ordinance on final passage.
Yes, Mayor, also on final passage, ordinance number 2990-20. It's an ordinance to regulate polystyrene foam disposable food serviceware. This ordinance will regulate the use of polystyrene foam, disposable food serviceware, and packaging.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Mr. Waltz, do we have anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance?
No, sir.
Thank you. Hearing no one, we will now close the public hearing. I will now entertain a motion. Ms. Adams.
I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same in the South Orange Maplewood News Record according to law.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Atkins,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrecht,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee.
Yes, and thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We are now on agenda item number 11, our sixth and final ordinance for tonight.
Mayor, also on final passage, ordinance number 2991-20. It's an ordinance to amend chapter 100 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Checkout Bags. This ordinance will revise certain definitions and certain provisions of the existing ordinance based upon the experience of the implementation of the ordinance.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. And I'll go on and say that this ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Mr. Waltz, do we have anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance?
Yes, Mayor. Ms. Joan Crystal from Porter Avenue her comment is given advice to use disposable bags during the COVID-19 crisis to prevent the spread of disease. Is the township considering relaxing the single-use bag ordinance at this time?
Thank you, Ms. Crystal. The answer is no. We are keeping the ordinance intact. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this ordinance?
No, sir.
Thank you. Hearing no one else, we will now close the public hearings. May I receive a motion, Mr. DeLuca?
Mayor, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Can I get a second, please?
Second, my apologies. I
No worries. Any discussion?
just want to address that comment a little bit. This is really a clarification or tightening of this ordinance to more clearly define reusable bags and make it less likely that some businesses could skirt this ordinance by the way we witnessed that it was since we first passed it. So while I understand we're in a pandemic crisis right now, I don't think we need to, this has been well in advance of what we're going through right now and was already in existence. This just clarifies and tightens up some of our definitions. So I would just say to Ms. Crystal, I think we need to still pay attention to our environment for when we come out on the other side.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. I agree. There's been communications to us from experts saying that we should be wary of this, these discussions, and actually, in the fact of the matter that, that they're mute in terms of what people have been told. There's a lot of hearsay out there, including this narrative as well. So thank you, Ms. Adams. We appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion?
No, sir.
Okay. Seeing no more discussion, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Zappis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We will now have our administrative report from Ms. Viveros.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have two items. The first item is with regard to the garbage disposal for Bergdorf, the Woodland, and Police Building. I just wanted to bring up the Township Committee up to speed that we did solicit various vendors, and it looks like we're going to go with Waste Management, who was the lowest contractor here, and the current contract we have with Waste Industries was $700 a month, and then this contract will be for $620 per month for the 3 locations. So we're going ahead with that contractor. If anyone has any questions with regard to that, I think we were just trying to figure out where we were with that before.
I'm just a little, I don't know, it seems kind of high to me, but for 3 buildings, right? How many pickups?
It's 1 pickup per week, and the other quote that we received was with Galuzzo Brothers, that's also in the area, and that was $750.
Yeah, I'm not doubting. It's just kind of surprising given what we pay residentially. If you put 3 households together, it would be a lot less money.
Well,
As a
but
resident.
3 households probably have a lot less garbage than these buildings produce, particularly when they're holding events.
Yeah, that's true. Except they do it twice a week. I was just surprised at the number. That's all. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay. And just the other item, I'm just going to briefly state and then let our CFO explain. We were going to introduce the budget on next week at the next Township Committee meeting. However, given the state of emergency, there have been various local finance notices that allowed the Division of Local Government Services to extend the introduction of the budget, and that they moved it from March 29th to April 28th, so we would be able to introduce the first meeting in May, and the adoption to May 30th. What this also means is that they've also allowed that expenditures related to COVID-19 to be outside of the cap, and given where we are now, the costs are being incurred, and we'd like to make sure that we separate those costs and introduce the budget at a later date. So I'll let Mr. Kolodziej explain further.
All right. Hopefully I'm heard and I'm not choppy and breaking up. Ms. Viveros, I think, explained it very succinctly. Essentially, there's a lot of the legislation that's coming out of Trenton these days. One of them was the tool of having the flexibility to keep your budget open in order to make sure that any COVID-19 expenses would be outside the cap that we typically need to deal with. Most towns are taking advantage of the fact that they have the ability to extend the budget. I know that the governing body is anxious to move forward with our capital projects. We can still do that even though we have a temporary budget. All we'll need to do, and there'll be a resolution at our next regular meeting next week, I would add money into the temporary budget that would cover the down payment for the bond ordinances. And we would be able to move forward and introduce the bond ordinances, and we would be able to introduce the capital budget, despite the fact that we're still working on the temporary budget.
Thank you, Mr. Kolodziej. Any questions for Mr. Kolodziej or Mr. Viveros regarding this timeline based on COVID-19 coronavirus?
Have one thing. The information we're getting from FEMA is that we need to have a very discrete budget line for the COVID-19 expenses in order for us to get reimbursed. So I know you're doing that. So let's make sure when we introduce it that we have something. I don't know how you're going to fashion it so that it's clear how much we're spending on the COVID-19?
So we've established a separate line item in the health department's budget. It seemed the most appropriate, even though the items that we've been purchasing so far to combat COVID-19 have been more in the DPW department. So we're aggregating all those purchase orders and expenditures into one area. At some point, we will also do the prorated calculations for any labor costs that were involved and move that into the line item as well. We've set up our purchasing system so that we can use a tracking ID that says COVID-19 so that we'll be able to easily produce reports and find where we have expenses that need to be moved into that account so that when the time comes to submit to FEMA, we will have all our paperwork in order.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaloje. Any additional questions for Mr. Kaloje regarding the timeline for our budget in relation to COVID-19 and in relation to also preparing for our capital? Okay, great. Mr. Kaloje, while we have you here, one of the questions that we received was regarding tax payments. And if you would be so kind and just address that question here in your report. I can try to pull a million windows and things open, but is regarding the timeline of tax payments and deferred payments. And if you could just speak to the public regarding that, I would appreciate it.
Certainly, Mayor. So as I said earlier, there's a lot of stuff that's coming out of Trenton, a lot of stuff that's still being worked on that's coming out of Trenton. One of the statutory requirements when it comes to property taxes is that they are due on February 1st, May 1st, August 1st, and November 1st. That's a hard stop in terms of the statute. There's legislation currently being discussed down in Trenton that we're anticipating will be adopted in the next 2 weeks that would give the Director of the Division of Local Government Services flexibility and the authority to extend the grace period. So right now, the statutory grace period is only 10 days. They're haggling out between trying to figure out if it's going to be 30 days or if it's going to be 60 days. Once they pass the legislation, the director will provide us with the guidance for what we can do, and then we would put a resolution in front of the governing body that would allow us to extend the grace period. So in effect, if they decide that they're going to go with the maximum 30-day grace period, taxes would still be due on May 1st, but we would have all the way until May 30th to pay it before any interest is accrued on the delinquent tax.
Thank you, Mr. Kaloje. I think the takeaway is that, as we talked about in our last meeting, we wanted to go to the 10-day max because that's what we can only do by statute. And now we understand that that they're extending it potentially to a 30-day period. And, in good faith, we will do our best to align with that.
It's similar to what they did when Superstorm Sandy hit. The only difference was Superstorm Sandy, the exceptions wound up being if the property was damaged. Obviously, this is a little bit of a different situation. And the other issue that they need to hammer out before they can enact the legislation is how late collections would affect payments to the entities that we collect for. So the county payments, the school district payments, the SID payments. All those logistics need to be worked out first before they can decide how long a grace period they want to give.
Thank you, Mr. Kaloje. Any other questions for Mr. Kaloje or Ms. Riveros at this time? Ms. Riveros, do you have anything else to add?
I do not, Mayor.
Okay.
I have one question. Do we need to take any action on delaying the budget introduction, or just we're okay as is?
You're okay as is. The local finance notice came out and told us that we don't need to adopt now until the end of April of the first regularly scheduled meeting. Thereafter, that's all we need from the state to delay our budget introduction.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Riveros. Thank you, Mr. Kaloje. We will now end our administrative reports. Move on to agenda item number 13. We have a resolution.
Mayor, it's resolution number 71-20. Resolution authorizing an award of contract for fixed wireless network services within certain areas of Maplewood Township for data network solutions.
Mr. Daffis, would you like to say a few words before we have the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I just am delighted that we're finally moving forward with this project as a champion of the participatory budgeting program in Maplewood. This was the project that was selected by the community. It is certainly a very important project. And currently, under the circumstances, when everybody is online and we recognize that we have a significant digital divide in town, really excited about moving forward with awarding this contract and getting started. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dappis, for your efforts on this as well. I would like to move the adoption of resolution number 7120.
I will second that, Mayor. Thank you.
Awesome. Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Adams,
Yes.
Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We are now at agenda item number 14, which is our public comment. We did receive a couple of questions. The first one, Mr. Kaloje did address. One question we received was April 4th shredded day to be scheduled or canceled? The answer is that has been canceled. So there will be no shredding day this Saturday, April 4th. I think we have one more question here. I'm looking for, is Ms. Davenport on the phone?
Yes, I'm here.
I think we do have a question here. And let me just find it. It's here in my, the question is, will there be testing for Maplewood residents regarding the COVID-19 in the near future?
To answer that question, no, not at this time.
Awesome.
We're using
And
the resources that are being offered at Essex County through Weequahic Park in Newark.
Thank you. There's another question here asking, where can healthcare individuals volunteer their services for the township regarding COVID-19?
That's a good question. We advise people to register for the Medical Reserve Corps, and through that, we will call upon volunteers as needed. We're always looking for volunteers who have medical experience as well as non-medical experience to assist. While the need may not present itself at this time, I'm sure we will need people in the near future for starting up a clinic in town if we do start up one.
Thank you, Ms. Davenport. And also thank you for your service, you and Anna and the team to the town. We all greatly appreciate it. And when I say thank you, I'm saying thank you on behalf of everyone in the township of Maplewood.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Can we just clarify one thing on your answer, Ms. Davenport? On the Essex County, if someone has some symptoms, they can go online and make an appointment for the testing at Weequahic? Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, that is correct. At the top of the EssexCovid.org website, though, it says that most of the appointments are already into April 3rd. So if you cannot wait and would like to get tested, you can contact your healthcare provider. If they don't know where to send you, you can also go to an urgent care center. At that point, you'll call them and they'll screen you over the phone. And if you qualify for testing, they'll ask you to come in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davenport. There was a couple other questions, and there was one that was asking where can questions be sent in for the governor. That is a question that we will have to follow up on offline. I'm sure we can reach out to our local connections down in Trenton and provide the resident with a email address in which they can reach out and provide their questions to the governor's office. And also another question that was provided was, our updates being televised. And at this point, we're trying to get information out as quick and as efficient as possible. We've done a few videos regarding PSAs and COVID-19, and we do get those up on our YouTube channel as well as this meeting and other meetings. So we're doing the best to leverage all our channels and mediums as efficiently and quickly as possible. I want to actually recognize our Assistant Township Administrator, Glenn, who has become just our all things IT and digital. He's doing a phenomenal job. I just want to recognize him, and the township owes you great gratitude, because with you, we've been able to, disseminate key and important information to our residents, efficiently and effectively. So thank you so much for that. And I think my colleagues will feel the same. Thank you, Glenn.
Mayor, I have the state website to reach the state. It's COVID 19.nj.gov, G-O-V. And there's a lot of information here, and there's also an opportunity to put in your name and your question and have that be answered.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. And we'll get that information back in the email back to the resident as well, in the event that they are not listening tonight.
That should definitely be on our website, on the town's website, because there's a ton of information there.
Yeah, the likely that is the case. It's on our COVID-19 website. I don't have it up in front of me.
Yes, this is Candace Davenport. Yes, it is on our website.
Okay, thanks.
I need a fourth computer to.
I know, I'm working with two right now myself.
If you could only see the phone and two laptops and 3 tablets, it's crazy.
So, Mayor, I have a question that I received from some residents today, and something that we should probably highlight to our residents. Earlier today in his press conference, his daily press conference, the governor spoke directly about long-term care facilities throughout the state of New Jersey. Of the 375, I think it is, that there are throughout the state, 81 of them have posted positive cases. Obviously, our seniors are one of our most vulnerable communities when we think about COVID. And I wanted to know, and I wanted to express to our residents what we are doing from a public health perspective here in Maplewood to ensure that our facilities that we have are following the proper measures.
I think that's a great question, and I am privy to the information, but since Ms. Davenport is here, she can address that directly.
Sure. So we are in touch with Winchester Gardens, as well as our senior apartments located on Irvington Avenue. We are in touch with the nurses at Winchester Gardens, as well as the building managers at the senior apartments, and we're watching out for them. We're also watching out for our group homes, who also have another vulnerable population there as well, and essential workers who are there. And they're all going above and beyond in terms of trying to educate their community about the importance of what they're doing. They're restricting visitor access, only allowing healthcare providers or essential personnel, following the path of what the hospitals are doing in terms of restricting visitors to reduce the spread of any potential disease in the area. They're removing all of the chairs and tables out of the common entryways and common areas, and they've closed down community rooms in order to prevent gatherings. And they're educating their staff about what is needed for disinfecting and cleaning. We've also had them say that they're now testing temperatures of staff during the time before and after shifts. So that is also helping to mitigate the spread of disease as well.
Thank you, Ms. Davenport. I wanted to follow up on that. I really appreciate your efforts. The governor today issued an order requiring that all visitors to these facilities, and these would be the daily in and out care professionals that some of the residents have, that those people are required to wear a mask. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to be enforced, but the idea is to sort of get the message out there that masks could be a very preventative measure in our long-term care facilities. I mentioned this to bring it to your attention. I'm sure you're ready. Is that your attention? But also because I know that some of our volunteer groups, some of our awesome community members who are donating masks or creating masks have reached out to Winchester Gardens in particular, and they've received sort of a response that wasn't as welcoming, to the effect that we don't need masks, we're not using masks. Now, I don't know how true that is, but again, I'm bringing this up to your attention so that you're aware of it and that you're also aware of enforcing the masked order.
Okay, yeah. In fact, just today we sent out to all of these vulnerable locations guidance from the state health department with regards to bumping up their procedures and protocols for reducing the spread of disease. Let's talk offline about that, and I can approach my contacts at all of these locations, and if they would like masks, I can see about getting them to them expediently.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis, and thank you, Ms. Davenport. Since we haven't had a chance to reach out to the public in any notification, we are up to 53 cases today total. And we have ages ranging from 47 to 81. So we're now at a total of 53 cases. So this thing is continuing to impact our community, and we just have to continue to be mindful of each other and practice all the things that we've discussed, I think, over and over again in our communications, social distancing, washing your hands, and also please go to our website, our COVID-19 website, at the township website, to find out the information or answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Mayor, one clarification.
Mr.
One
Lumber, please.
question I've seen, in some online discussions is the numbers that we give, that the county gives, that the state gives. My understanding is those are all confirmed positive tested cases. Is that correct? That that people who are feeling symptomatic and think they have it and may have reached out but haven't actually been tested or received test results aren't counted in that number. So, so our number very well could be higher, but that's the number of positive test results that we're aware of.
That's correct. We're only using fact-based data that our health division is receiving, and hypothetically, we could have more individuals in our community that are impacted by COVID-19. But what we do is we just report out the numbers that have been confirmed.
And those numbers come in from the county each day. Is that correct, Ms. Davenport?
Yes, they pull from the lab reporting system, and they pull the numbers in the morning and in the afternoon. Their numbers in the afternoon will be more accurate with what we report in the evening nightly updates through the mayor's office. So all of those we are going through, moving from pending to open and then conducting the investigation that day.
Okay. Thank you very much for the clarification.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, Ms. Davenport. That's one reason why a lot of the communications don't go out till evening time, as we're making sure that we're providing the most up-to-date and most confirmed data. So, I just want to also recognize Mr. DeLuca for today. He was able to work collectively along with Deputy Mayor Daffis to have a conference call for small businesses relations to the state and federal funding and grants that are available. We're going to get the information from the call and other resources up on our website tomorrow. Again, Glenn is only one person and he's doing his best, but we will get that information and send an email to support it. I thought it was a phenomenal call. We were joined by several expertise, several SID managers, and really got a lot of information out there to the public. We've received a lot of positive feedback. And I do believe there's another call tomorrow being held by South Orange. So there's information out there. More information, the better. So please look out for information, through other channels to find out about South Orange's call. And last but not least, I want to remind everyone that tomorrow is officially U.S. Census Day, April 1st. And so for those who might be listening or watching out there, please don't forget to respond to U.S. Census. If you want to, you can use your social media and say, hey, I've responded, maybe put a sticker up. But it's really important. We're doing better than average from a county and state perspective. We're not doing as well as South Orange. So we want to at least beat them. And we want to be the best in the county, if not the best in the state. So please do your part while you're home with your families and friends, or your families in your households. Take 5 or 6 minutes and knock this thing out at 20mycensus.gov. So, any other comments or questions from my colleagues?
I have a couple comments, Mayor. Thank you. I just wanted to express my deepest sympathies to the family of the one confirmed death due to COVID that we are aware of and reported out to the public yesterday. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family, and we're deeply, deeply sorry for their loss. On a positive note, I wanted to remind the public and the community that today is International Trans Visibility Day and Day of Visibility, and it's an opportunity to salute and appreciate our trans in town and throughout the state and all over the country, and we salute them. The organizers this year, obviously under the circumstances, decided to postpone any celebrations related to visibility and raising awareness. But I just wanted to get that in there and acknowledge our trans brothers and sisters. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis. Anyone else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Aye.